All right, let's move on to our Black Mirror Season 6 review. Again, I'm pretty sure just myself and Tyler killed the entire season.
Hey, shout out to both of you. Shout out to both of you this week.
Yeah, honestly, we grinded this week.
I
was supposed to.
I'm jealous.
My double feature on Thursday was supposed to be a triple feature. I was supposed to see Asteroid City. There was one screening at 10:45 p.m. in the city, but I didn't go.
Too late for that, yeah.
I could not do a triple feature.
And that was like your first ever double feature. There's no need to dive right into a triple feature. You got to use yourself.
Second double feature. Second. First one was Scream 6 on 65. Goated double feature.
Also, cut another side point, people are already blaming James Gunn for The Flash, and it's hilarious because people are idiots.
Obviously.
Not a James Gunn movie. Clearly,
people don't watch the ReelTok podcast because you've mentioned that 700 times.
Yeah, silly people.
All right, let's move on to Black Mirror Season 6. Tyler, how do you want to do this? Do you want to just review the whole season, or do you want to just quickly go episode by episode?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you want to do it. I guess let's just go episode by episode and give our just brief high-level thoughts. I know Seth's probably going to watch it like this week or sometime soon. And a lot of people haven't got to it yet because not everyone's able to grind through it all. But we'll go high-level every episode, just starting with Jonah's Awful and run our way through D79.
And we'll keep it spoiler-free. I know internally among ourselves, we've talked about doing a real quick ranking all the Black Mirror episodes. So maybe we'll put that off until Cam and Seth watched Season 6.
That's good thing. Cam's got like 30 episodes.
Oh, have you not seen anything?
I think I said this. Same with Secession. I will watch these shows. Like, if I'm not watching them in the moment, they've already had like 6 seasons, whatever. I will watch these shows when this becomes my full-time job. I'm sorry. I cannot, or I get an online job. I cannot right now. I'm sorry.
That's fair. But you'll rewatch all of Star Wars twice a year.
Dude, I cut halfway through. I didn't even do that, and I do want to get back on that, but I did cut like halfway through.
All right, let's keep it going because we're pushing the 2-hour mark. Jonah's Awful was the first episode of the season. That stars Annie Murphy, Salma Hayek. We also have Himesh Patel and Michael Cera making small cameos. Quick non-spoiler thoughts. I think this is a really solid opening. I think this does a good job at bringing us back into the meta techno world of Black Mirror, giving us like these futuristic concepts that are eerily realistic. Obviously, something like this is just wildly unrealistic, but like kind of realistic, if that makes sense. But I think this was a really solid episode. It was, I think Annie Murphy is an absolute delight. I think her rapport with Salma Hayek works really well back and forth. And the ending of this episode absolutely sold it for me. I really like the resolution, mainly because I didn't see it coming. And obviously we'll keep it spoiler free, but I really did not see the ending of this episode being the ending on how they kind of resolve this entire issue. But overall, I think this was a really solid introduction into another season of Black Mirror. And maybe it was just because season 5 left such a bad taste in my mouth that I thought very highly of Jonah's Awful. I think it was I don't think Black Mirror was doing anything in Jonah's Awful to like resonate with me or really push the boundaries of what they've done in the past, from like a White Christmas to a USS Callister. But in terms of series premieres, episode 1, I think this is just a really good job at bringing us back into the world of Black Mirror and kind of these absurd, futuristic concepts that they've been giving us in the past.
Yeah, I echo that. I gave it a 4-star. I really liked it. The first like 15, 20 minutes, I was pretty unsure about. I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to like where this is going. There's a lot of comedic elements that sometimes Black Mirror is able to pull off, sometimes they aren't. But then once it really starts to get going around like a third way mark into it, I completely flipped the switch and I absolutely started loving this. The ending, like you said, is so great, and the way they tie it in, I didn't see it coming. There's one of those, like a lot of Black Mirror episodes where the more you think about it, the more you can point out like plot holes and like issues with it. But definitely the way that it transpires is nice, like eerily creepy. Basically like the dystopian elements they're tackling in this one are both like terms and conditions and what those can do to you, as well as artificial intelligence, which I get like, so artificial intelligence for writers in the writing world and in the movie world is something that's relatively new-ish in terms of what the general public talking about it. I'm sure actual writers like Charlie Brooker and other writers have known this is coming a lot longer than the discourse of the public has been. But I was still more like, this is so timely because there's a whole movie about like, or episode about like AI, like writing scripts and stuff like that. And I was like, dang, it's like perfect they got this come out now, and it's just like the huge buzz topic of everything, even though, they were probably producing this like a year ago, if not more. So nice to kind of jump the gun on that, which Black Mirror has done time and time again, where they kind of can see where technology is going before the rest of the world catches up to it. But Andy Murphy's great. Salma Hayek's great. Loved Michael Cera in this. I wish we got more of him. But yeah, this was such a great way to start the season off. I really enjoy this one. 4 stars, like I said. And maybe I'm overrating it just because, like George said, season 5 was such a bad taste in my mouth as well. It just wasn't a good season at all. But this was just a banger way to start off. A great, fun, interesting dystopian look at the world with quite a cool resolution at the end.
Yeah. Super lighthearted compared to like past Black Mirror episodes when they tackle things like AI and that shit. But solid introduction to the season. I go with a 4 out of 5. It's my second ranked of the season. It's my third ranked of the season, so it falls right in the middle. But overall, it's a solid season. Episode 2 was titled Loch Henry. And this was a young couple travel to a sleepy Scottish town to start work on a genteel nature documentary, but find themselves drawn into a juicy local story involving shocking events of the past. This is my number 2 rank of the season. Could have very well been my number 1. This was just the perfect time for Black Mirror to dive into true crime, coming off of Dahmer and Apple TV Plus's Blackbird, as well as just this emergence of true crime obsession over the last couple of years. I think this was just a really, I don't want to say culturally relevant episode, but it was just a very relevant episode given people's obsession with true crime as of late. And I thought this episode was fantastic. I think the entire episode had just like this very haunting presence to it. This very eerie aura around it, which just it made for a very intriguing watch. I just never wanted to remove my eyes from the screen because I was so interested where this episode was going. It does such a good job at like keeping me on my toes, not knowing what is, the history with the specific crime at hand, as well as where it's going to go. And I think the episode does a really good job at subverting our expectations towards the end with exactly how it plays out, which I really fucking love. So I went with a 4 out of 5 on Loch Henry. It is my second rank of the season. Really, really enjoyed the tackling of true crime. And I think this was as good an episode in true crime as Black Mirror could have given us.
Yep, again, agree. I gave this a 3.5 star, but a 7.4 out of 10, so right lower. This is right under a 4 star. This is my middle of the road episode for the season in terms of this is my number 3. It definitely keeps you guessing the entire time. There's like the only episode in the season I think that I can think of that had like actors and actresses that I haven't really seen and stuff before. So a lot more no-name-ish crew, but I thought they all did very good.
The lead girl was in Bodies.
I haven't seen that yet, so that makes sense why I wouldn't recognize that. But Stewart, freaking MVP. I love Stewart. He played Podrick in Game of Thrones. Yeah, he was so funny. Character. And like he's one of those characters that like once he joins in and like his comedy starts coming, you're like, this could easily be a character that gets overdone, but it didn't. I was like, I need more of him. He was so awesome. This is the scariest and creepiest Black Mirror has gotten since Playtest. It keeps you guessing the whole time. It's definitely eerie throughout. I didn't love the finality of one person in the episode, which wish they could have done that a little better, but the ending definitely subverted my expectations where I thought I knew it was going, and it kind of went there-ish, but was different than I was initially expecting. So that was well done. But yeah,
I want to go into spoilers on this episode because of Riley's Letterboxd review of it, because what she says is,
wait, you gonna say spoilers now?
No, we're not going to go into it. But Riley's Letterboxd, she just put one quick sentence, and that's exactly what I thought after the episode.
I don't know if I know you're talking about, so you need to text me on the side that Letterboxd review so I can look at it. But
can I check Riley's Letterboxd review, George, or is that the spoiler?
No. It's a spoiler.
Oh, that is the spoiler.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not a spoiler just because you don't really know. Tyler, I just texted it to you. But yeah, that I swear to God, that's exactly what I thought after the episode ended. I was like, okay, like this.
I was like, which Riley on movie TikTok am I like not aware of? Riley, my freaking girlfriend.
Your Riley, your girlfriend, Riley.
I was like, who are you talking about?
Your girlfriend.
So funny.
Yeah, I saw her review and I was like, that's exactly what I fucking thought, man. I was like, and that's what like elevated the show for me. The idea that is true. And obviously I'm not going to say what that is, but if that is true, then I think that just adds so many layers to this episode that I just really fucking love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This doesn't spoil anything. So basically what the episode's about is basically the two people you see in the poster, the guy and the girl, they're dating and they're both film students and they're going to go make a documentary for their film class to try and debut. And once they go to his hometown, they figure out this true crime story of Loch Henry, or she gets aware of what this town had to go through. So instead of what they were going to film a movie on, they decide, okay, let's make a true crime documentary on this. And the ending reminded me a lot of Blowout in terms of like, they make this documentary, but then kind of like at what cost, you know, they're like, you know, like John Travolta at the end of Blowout, where he's like looking at his work and he's like, this is a masterpiece. But he's like, God damn, like it wasn't worth it in the end, you know? And like that definitely leaves it very open-ended because you still won't see where it's going. But it's definitely the scariest and creepiest an episode of Black Mirror has been throughout since Playtest, for sure.
It's Playtest, no doubt. Definitely super haunting, super eerie, and just a really, really solid entry into true crime. Episode 3, a lot of people have been lauding this as the best episode. I'm on that train as well. It's called Beyond the Sea. It stars Aaron Paul and an alternative 1969. Two men on a perilous high-tech mission wrestle with the consequences of an unimaginable tragedy. I won't even say what the tragedy is because I feel like that's a spoiler, so we won't really necessarily go into it. But yeah, this is my favorite episode of the season. I think it runs a bit long, but I do think that this is one of the darker endings Black Mirror has given us. And it just made me feel so gross and uncomfortable. I had in my letterbox review, this episode felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. Like, you know where this episode's going. You know exactly how it's going to play out. It's not an episode that's going to like give you massive twists and turns and keep you guessing. You know, once one thing happens in this show and like it starts to unravel, you know where it's going to go. But it's like, it's such good writing, such good acting that you just can't help but be locked into this episode. And I absolutely love that. Again, I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. I think there are a lot of moments that just kind of dragged on. They just kind of reiterate a lot of points that didn't need to be reiterated with a couple of the relationships on screen. But overall, I love when Black Mirror dips into science fiction. I think they do a very, very good job at it. And this was the not the standout episode of the season for me, but one of the standouts because I rate this and Loch Henry a 4 out of 5, but I edged this one slightly higher.
Yeah, this was my favorite episode of the season. It was so good. So basically, like, kind of what's going on here is Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett are working on a space station, and they're kind of doing like a 5-year-long mission or something. But the way it works is they kind of aren't working 24/7, so they kind of do the tasks they need to do. Then they can go in this deep sleep, and they have a body double on Earth that they get to inhabit, live with their families. It looks exactly like them. So they can kind of live on Earth while also being a part of the mission up top. And yeah, like you see where it's going the whole time. It is like a crash, like your letterbox review is perfect, like a car crash in slow motion. But the finality of it subverted my expectations because I kind of thought I knew where I was going in terms of what ends up happening at the very end. But it kind of goes a little different for what I was expecting, which I loved. It is so dark. This is one of the darkest endings in Black Mirror history, and I thought they all were just so great in this. Aaron Paul, Josh Hartnett, Kate Mara. It's one of the best acted episodes of Black Mirror. But that's again not a surprise when you have 3 like staple actors who are in tons of stuff leading your episode. But the tension just kept building slowly throughout. Like this whole season in general, like the whole 60s, 70s vibe of every episode was so good. Like it just looked so nice and refreshing, and all the visuals and just the way every episode was shot was so good. But man, this one's just a haunting, dark episode. My favorite of the season. The tension throughout just keeps building to a point where you're like, holy shit, like this is about to boil over, and your eyes are just glued to the screen. And yeah, man, it's just a depressing ass episode, but it just went perfectly. Like Aaron Paul is so damn good, dude. Like Josh Hart and Kmart were great too, but Aaron Paul is so damn good.
Yeah, they were both amazing. And yeah, it's the ending. The ending is what just kind of threw this overboard for me, because it was like you kind of expected something to happen, and you kind of expected either that was going to happen, or I don't want to say what, because it'll spoil what actually happened. But yeah, the ending is one of the darker ones that Black Mirror has given us, and I think it's such a nice, just like cherry on top of an overall very tense episode, that it kept building to something. And if nothing had happened, I would have been a little tight, because it's like one of those things where it's like watching a like intense scene in a movie where the music keeps building, and then there's like the big needle drop, and then shit happens. That's what this episode felt like for me. But we'll continue on. Beyond the Sea, both mine and Tyler's number one ranked of the season. Episode 4, called Maisie Day. This one stars Zazie Beetz. A troubled starlet is dogged by invasive paparazzi while dealing with the consequences of a hit-and-run incident. This is my lowest rated of the season, and I give it a 2.5. So it's not like I thoroughly dislike it to the level that I dislike the episodes of season 5. This just felt very non-Black Mirror, if that makes sense. Like, they're not pushing anything thematically deep. There's no crazy futuristic tie-in. This just felt like a very cutthroat episode. They wanted this season to be 5 episodes, so they just threw in a very reserved, very I don't want to say non-intriguing, but they just threw an episode in there just to get to the number 5 on the season, and this is that episode for me. But maybe it's just a problem for me, but like it doesn't feel like a Black Mirror episode. It really didn't, and I don't know if you agree with that, Tyler, but that's how I came away from Maisie Day, where it just felt very. Black Mirror wasn't stretching anything making this episode. They weren't pushing the boundaries of anything the way they typically do in like a Be Right Back or a San Junipero. It just felt very bland and uninspired, I'll say.
Yeah, so this episode's basically kind of like a take on the movie Nightcrawler, but instead of for news, it's just paparazzi in general. It's like a Nightcrawler for paparazzi with a kind of a fantasy twist. And Twilight fans, like Riley's a big Twilight fan in terms of it being like a guilty pleasure. There's so many Twilight references, like the Muse song Needle Drop is right from Twilight 1. Obviously a lot of stuff that happened, even the setting, like in the woods, and it reminded me a lot of like the redwoods in Washington. There's just so much in this that's just oozing with Twilight influence. But yeah, the thing is, like, I thought it was a middle of the road episode, like you for a 2.5 star, but I gave it a 3 star barely, just because that final shot was so dark and grim. And I was like, holy shit. Like, cause the whole time you're kind of thinking basically that the person's learning, that they're kind of changing, that they're kind of becoming different. And then the final shot just kind of throws a wrench in that plan. And it was just so dark, but the episode itself was aggressively average. Like, I thought all the episodes in the season looked really good. I thought this one looked the worst. Like, because of what happens with the fantasy elements, like it's clearly they don't have the budget to be able to make that happen in a good looking way. But yeah, it was a cool analysis on paparazzi culture. Wasn't anything terrible. This is the worst episode of the season, or no, technically the next one is, but I know that's a hot take for me. But the season in general, I didn't think really had any bad episodes. So that's why I genuinely, truly believe this is one of the best seasons of Black Mirror ever had. Because season 2, we had Waldo moment, awful. Season 3, we had like Metalhead and other stuff that weren't great. Season 4, we had season 5, we had the Miley Cyrus one. Like, every season has one that's kind of just like a dog shit episode. Didn't really think any of them were dog shit in this season. So it was just a very good season. None of them are amazing, but as a collective season, it's just very good. But this is my second lowest. The next one, the last one we're going to talk about, is my lowest. But again, that one is a really high average letterbox. So that's my take, not everyone's.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think, if anything, I think Maisie Day was the only miss of the season, but also I wouldn't call it 2.5 out of 5 a miss. Like, I have Black Mirror episodes rated 1 or 1.5, so Black Mirror has definitely missed harder than Maisie Day. So I can kind of agree with you. Overall consistency, I think season 6 definitely delivered. My biggest problem with season 6 is that there's just nothing that's going to resonate with me. There's nothing that's stuck with me the way like Be Right Back, White Christmas, San Junipero, Black Museum have stuck with me. Those have I've not stopped thinking about those episodes since I watched them. Like, I've already forgotten about season 6 of Black Mirror, not in a bad way, but it's just not sticking with me the way I would have liked it to, which is why I still don't know if I would hold it above seasons 1, 2, 3, or 4, even though those seasons do have dog shit episodes. They also have, in my humble opinion, some of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. But we'll move on to the final episode, Demon 79. This was a pretty, and I don't know, obviously I think you just said that this is your lowest rate of the season. This is my second lowest of the season, but I still went with a 3.5 out of 5 because this one felt like a risk. This one felt like Black Mirror was trying to go somewhere maybe they never have. It was a...
Can I just say quickly?
Yeah.
You know the Maisie Day you just spoke about?
Yeah.
That's officially the lowest rated Black Mirror episode on Letterboxd.
I mean, I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
I know, that's like a 2.3.
Yeah, it's very low.
It's like crazy low. Jeez.
I think it's the worst.
Like that.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's the worst Black Mirror episode by any means. I think Waldo Moment's worse. Miley Cyrus is worse. Striking Vipers is worse. I definitely
they were terrible.
Yeah, those were not that good. But Demon 79, we'll wrap up our Black Mirror talk with this final episode. I don't even know how to describe this. It was a horror, comedy, slasher, thriller, science fiction fucking thing. But this one just felt like they swung for the fences. They took a risk that I was going to say that I've never seen Black Mirror take, but Black Mirror is literally known for taking risks with episodes. But this felt like the biggest risk take of this season, and I think it worked. I really enjoyed all the horror elements. I think a lot of this episode, it's more of just like a respect thing. Like, I can respect Black Mirror kind of changing around their vibe for this episode, and between this and Lock Henry, I think they're going for something a little different that they necessarily haven't gone for in the past, and that's maybe giving us more reserved narratives and things that I don't want to say we can relate to more, but things that maybe we are more inclined to watch nowadays, and that's slashers, horror movies, comedies, true crime documentaries, or shit like that. Tyler, this is your lowest rate of the season, so I'm pretty interested to see what you have to say.
Yeah, and this could have been the consequence of just Riley and I. We watched all 5 back to back and just binged it one night. And this one stylistically was a huge breath of fresh air. Like you said, it's kind of a different territory than Black Mirror's ever gone in. But it was just a boring slog for us. Like, I just never was engaged in this. So basically, she has to. The whole thing that sets into motion is that she basically gets kind of cursed-ish, where it's like basically she has to, the apocalypse is going to happen if she doesn't kill 3 people, and that's the whole plot of this episode. And stylistically was an awesome episode, very unique. I just found it quite boring, and the comedy just didn't quite hit for me. And again, like, Beyond the Sea is kind of the consensus, like, best, quote unquote, best episode of the season in terms of people loving it the most. But Demon 79 by far is the biggest cult following. Like, people were telling me, like, on Reddit, like, apparently, like, Reddit's obsessed with this episode, and a lot of people love it. It has a high Letterboxd average. Like, people are loving Demon 79. So I can see why people would, because it is so stylistically different. And this season in general was very good at just blending a lot of different styles. Like, because even Maisie Day, like we talked about, was quite stylistically different than Black Mirror's ever done. So for me, it was just quite boring, and I just didn't care for it from the story perspective. But from a filmmaking perspective, there was a lot to appreciate here. So yeah, it's not like I don't have any ill will towards it. I just give it a 2-star because I just couldn't find myself engaged in the plot, and it didn't suck me in. Like, even Maisie Day was able to get me intrigued into where it was going. And that kind of does come as a consequence too of this being like a 74 minutes. So it's almost more of a movie length as opposed to an episode length. Whereas, like, you know, Maisie Day was like a 42-minute episode or something. So I think this one was just stretched a little too long for me and my taste, whereas Beyond the Sea was longer than this, but I thought the tension was building sufficiently enough to keep me engaged. But yeah, I can totally see why people love this one. It's not for me. I think Seth will like this one. I'm going to be interested to see where you land on it. But yeah, I just found it a little too boring for my taste.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And it's definitely kind of been all over the place. If you look at the Letterboxd graph, it's like very right there between like a 2 and a 4.5. People love it. People hate it. But I go with a 3.5, kind of like a little bit right down the middle, mainly because I could just respect Black Mirror for kind of taking a risk. But we'll wrap up our Black Mirror thoughts there. That'll end our review portion of the episode.